Everything great was once nothing. Every success you see today once lived only in someone's imagination. And that's the paradox of life. We want more money, more opportunities, more meaning, yet we start with empty hands. I know what it's like to stand in front of the mirror and see a person who has nothing but a dream. I've been there. And it was from that nothing that my everything began. Because here's the truth. It doesn't matter what you have today. What matters is what you're capable of creating. In this video, I'll show you 3 simple yet powerful ways to turn emptiness into opportunity, doubt into belief, and an idea into a result. And if you stay until the end, I'll give you a practical method that will literally launch your magical process of creation, starting tonight. So let me ask you this. What if the nothing you're feeling right now isn't failure, but the beginning of something extraordinary? There's one truth that once seemed cruel to me, almost unfair. The world gives you nothing until you become the kind of person who can create something. When I was 25, I had no money, no plan, no confidence. I was just an ordinary farm boy from Idaho who worked during the day to survive and dreamed at night to stay sane. And you know what was the scariest part? Not poverty. The scariest thing was looking in the mirror and seeing not who I was, but who I could have been. One day my mentor, Mr. Schoaf, said to me, "Jim, you want more, but life doesn't give you more just because you want it. It gives more to the person who becomes more." That hit me hard. I realized if I wanted change, I had to start from emptiness, from nothing, from that inner point where you have nothing but an idea, imagination, and faith. From that moment, I began to see nothing differently. I stopped seeing it as failure. I saw it as a blank page, a chance to create something that had never existed before. Have you ever thought that every home, every song, every business, every movement, all of it began from one tiny, invisible impulse in someone's imagination? No bricks, no notes, no money, just an idea. But here's the paradox. Most people are afraid of emptiness. They're afraid to start from zero, because zero guarantees nothing. It holds silence, uncertainty, loneliness, yet that's exactly where creation begins. You can't create something if your life is already filled with noise, fear, and other people's expectations. God and nature love emptiness, because only into emptiness can they breathe new life. People often ask me, "Jim, how did you rise from where you were to the life millions dream about?" And I always answer, I learned to create from nothing. When I lacked money, I created ideas. When I lacked confidence, I created faith. When I lacked time, I created discipline. And step by step, that nothing began to take shape. Imagine an artist standing before a blank canvas. Some see fear. What if it doesn't work out? Another sees space. What if I create something beautiful? The difference between them isn't talent or experience, it's imagination. That ability to see the picture before it exists. And that's the first key to turning nothing into something. The ability to imagine with the full power of your mind. When you truly begin to see your future, your mind starts to work differently. I learned this firsthand. There was a time when I imagined myself speaking in front of thousands of people. In reality, I was afraid to speak even to a dozen. Yet every night before sleep, I'd close my eyes and see that scene, the lights, the audience, my hands gesturing in the air, and that quiet moment when the crowd falls silent, listening. It wasn't daydreaming, it was rehearsal. I wasn't just imagining, I was building an image so vivid that my brain began to accept it as real. And that's why I love to say, an idea isn't just a thought. It's the beginning of creation. When you learn to see possibilities even when they don't exist, when you stretch your imagination beyond the limits of reality, you begin to move reality itself. The real magic begins when an idea becomes so real in your mind that you start acting as if it already exists. And that's when the law of life kicks in. Everything you give attention to begins to grow. Faith follows imagination and action follows faith. That's how something is created from nothing. So if today you look at your life and see zero, remember, zero isn't emptiness. It's the beginning of counting. It's the same starting point from which all great things begin. All you need is to see the first spark in the darkness and not let it die out, because that spark is your chance. It's your new beginning. And today, I'll show you how to ignite that spark with 3 simple steps that change my life forever. Let's start from the place where every victory is born. Imagination. Not in your wallet, not in your office, not in your new laptop. In your mind, in that inner room to which no one but you has the key. I remember sitting at an old table in the evenings, deliberately overloading my mind with images of the future, stages and halls, books and audiences, teams and partnerships. It wasn't an escape from reality, it was training. Have you ever seen a musician mentally play a piece without touching an instrument? The hands stay still, but the music is already playing. That's how you should imagine your future. So vividly that your heart begins to set the tempo and your body adjusts to the rhythm. But here's the first twist. Most people think imagination is something soft and poetic. It's not. True imagination is a tool. It cuts like a knife, trimming away the unnecessary, and shines like a flashlight on what truly matters. When you sit down and deliberately paint in your mind a picture of what your work, your body, your income, your influence will look like a year from now, you're not turning on fantasy, you're turning on navigation. To where, you might ask? Toward the destination anchored by the image in your mind. Without it, the world tosses you around like a leaf in the wind. I often say imagination is a washing machine for reality. You put in a dirty day, and you take out a clean lesson and a new plan. Faced rejection, replay it in your mind, but this time with your ideal performance. Live through the scene completely. How you walk in, what you say, where you pause, where you smile, where you ask that follow-up question. Your brain loves rehearsal. Give it 5 rehearsals, and by the 6th time, success won't be an accident. It'll be a consequence. That's where from nothing to something begins. Second detail, imagine not only the goal but also the consequences. Seeing the paycheck feels nice, but try to imagine what your morning looks like when you've entered a new league of responsibility. Who are you talking to? What decisions are you making? What temptations are you avoiding? Whose feedback are you seeking? This matters because imagination without ethics and discipline turns into sweet dreams. And we don't need dreams, we need a script. Also, don't just imagine the big scenes. Picture the small ones. How you put your phone aside when you need to think. How you enter the room 5 minutes before a meeting. How you place a pencil next to your notebook at night. The little detail that makes tomorrow morning easier. Small images create big habits. Now let me ask a question to reset your focus. What if you already have enough ideas, but you just don't see them? Opportunities often hide behind silence. A seminar, a book, a short phrase from a stranger in an elevator, those are signals. When you tune yourself to the frequency of opportunity, you stop hearing noise and start noticing clues. I used to attend events, not for the coffee break, but to find sparks of imagination, those lines that suddenly turn on the spotlight in your mind. That's it. That's the thought I need to grow. One such spark once fueled a 5-year leap in my life, but I didn't wait for chance. I created it through the field of my attention. Here's another micro secret. Keep a possibility book. Not for show, but for the discipline of imagination. Write down 3 categories: what I saw, how I can apply it, and what's the first micro step. Not 10 steps, 1. Because imagination, if not stitched to the ground by action, turns into dust over time. But an idea, stitched to a single first step, becomes the fabric of a new day. And keep the rhythm. 1 idea, 1 micro step, 1 reflection note at night. In 30 days, you won't recognize your own thinking. It will become sharper, clearer, bolder. Now let me pause and say this directly. Sometimes imagination is blocked not by lack of talent, but by lack of permission. Do you allow yourself to imagine a grand stage? Do you allow yourself to see a healthier, wealthier, more influential version of you, not someday, but in concrete frames like tonight, I'm doing this to become who I see myself as? I once feared allowing myself a big image, afraid of disappointment, until I realized it's not imagination that hurts, it's lack of direction. When direction exists, even failure becomes guidance. And the final turn in this section, imagination is a team sport. Surround yourself with voices that fuel your images, not those that pour water on your fire. Listen to people whose stories turn maybe into I can. If I did it, you can too, should become part of your daily diet. Because when the mind is fed with examples, the heart dares to believe. And when the heart believes, the feet move on their own. Don't worry, we'll talk about faith soon. That's in the next part. But without this first step, without deep, detailed, daily imagination, the other steps have nowhere to grow from. So here's your small challenge for the end of the day. Find a quiet place and rehearse your tomorrow like a pilot before a flight. 3 key scenes, 3 phrases you'll say, 3 micro steps you'll take. See yourself in action, not as a blurry silhouette, but in high definition clarity. And keep in mind, this is only the prologue. Next, we'll raise the stakes. We'll add the muscle of faith to your imagination so that your vision stops being a picture and becomes an inner necessity. But that's for the next section. For now, turn on the light. Your nothing is waiting to become something. Imagination opens the door, but it's faith that leads you through it. Not religious ritual, an inner decision. I allow myself to believe this is possible for me. That used to be my biggest gap. I could spend hours imagining the stage, the new business, new friends, new freedom, but when it came to the question, why would this happen to me, a chorus of doubts would rise in my mind. You know those voices, too late, too early, wrong conditions, wrong past. And this is where the real work begins, because faith doesn't grow from waiting, it grows from what you feed it every day. I remember the first seminar a friend took me to. I didn't come with faith, I came with fatigue. I was 25 and honestly couldn't see a way out of debt. A man stood on stage and calmly said, "If I could do it, you can too." It's easy to shrug off a phrase like that when irony has already taken root in your heart. But something clicked inside me. If even one person has walked a similar path from a similar start, then it's not magic, it's mechanics. That means there are steps, that means there are disciplines, that means there's a way. And that night, for the first time, I borrowed not money, but faith from another person. That's the power of resonance. Someone else's story becomes the bridge your mind walks across from impossible to possible. But that alone isn't enough. You also need the second kind of resonance, your own. Clearly recall a moment when you succeeded at something hard. Don't exaggerate or downplay it. Maybe it was a small sale, a conquered fear, a first speech, or waking up early for 30 days straight. Say it aloud. If I did it once, I can do it again. Your brain doesn't believe promises, it believes proof. Give it proof, and it will stop sabotaging your intentions. When I started speaking, every successful meeting, even in front of 10 people, became my fuel. It worked yesterday. Today, I scale it up. That's how the reservoir of faith fills, drop by drop. There's another invisible obstacle. We want to believe in ourselves, but we live daily in an environment that quietly erodes that belief. Someone jokes about your plans, someone says, be realistic, someone shares fears instead of strategies. I'm not telling you to cut people off, I'm telling you to assign roles to their voices in your life. Some voices deserve 5 minutes a month, others you should hear every day. Adjust the volume. When I was learning discipline, I literally structured my day so that the voice of faith spoke first and loudest. Morning, a page of wisdom, a short note in the journal, one action toward my goal. Why in the morning? Because the first note sets the melody of the day. Now, a question for you to keep your focus sharp. Whom have you allowed to be your inner narrator? If it's the random stream of news and other people's fears, no wonder your faith wavers. Replace the narrator. Let your morning voice say, here's what's possible for me. Here's why today. Here's what I'm doing first. Don't promise yourself the stars. Promise yourself proof. Faith loves evidence more than declarations. An important truth, faith doesn't cancel doubt. It outweighs it. When I stood backstage before huge audiences, doubt never disappeared. It always whispered skillfully, what if this time you fail? And that's when I returned to the formula that saved me countless times. Imagination, faith, action. Imagination, I see the frames of my upcoming speech. Faith, I remind myself of 3 proofs that I can. Action, I take the first step, walk on stage, and start with one simple, sincere sentence. When the body joins the game, doubt lowers its voice. Remember this, action is the best attorney for your faith in the courtroom of inner objections. But there's a deeper layer. Faith isn't only about big stages or big paychecks. It's about frighteningly simple things. I believe I can go to bed on time. I believe I can put my phone away for 45 minutes of deep work. I believe I can be 5% better today as a listener to someone close. Why does that matter? Because these humble victories cement your identity. To put it bluntly but truthfully, you can't build a skyscraper out of bricks of self-betrayal. Every small promise you keep strengthens the belief I can rely on myself. And when you trust yourself, the world is more willing to trust you. Now, a short pause and a half-open preview. At the end of this video, I'll share a practice that makes your faith work almost effortlessly, almost automatically. But first, one more turn of thought. We often confuse faith with a guarantee. No, faith doesn't promise a smooth road. It promises you won't quit after the first bump. And that changes everything, because when you drop the illusion of ease, every obstacle becomes not a reason to stop, but a brick in your evidence wall. I see myself overcoming challenges. Therefore, I can handle more. And finally, let me ask the most important question of this section. What specific thing are you ready to believe about yourself today that yesterday felt audacious? Say it aloud. Write it down like a contract. Sign it. And take one micro action that stamps it. Remember, faith doesn't like waiting. It loves movement. And yes, I know you can already feel that impulse rising inside. Don't hold it back, because next we'll add the third element, action, and close the circle. The idea that became faith will turn into a result, but that's not all. In the third part, I'll reveal a few surprising moves that multiply your results when you start from zero, and then nothing will lose its power over you for good. Now comes the moment that dreamers fear and creators adore. Action. This is where imagination stops being a movie in your head and faith stops being a nice story. Here they put on work gloves. If you want a simple formula, remember it like the password to your destiny. Imagine, believe, act. The first 2 steps make you internally ready, but only the third reshapes the ground beneath your feet. And yes, this is where calluses appear, along with mistakes, awkward conversations, and early mornings. That's good news, because scars from action are the diplomas of reality. At some point, I realized something that saved me years of frustration. Inaction looks like safety, but it's actually the most expensive form of risk. You pay for it with your future. When I delayed calls, postponed meetings, or waited for the right time, life quietly handed down its verdict: 0 results. But when I started acting, the world didn't become kinder. It became more honest. It started responding. Some said yes, others no, but I was no longer guessing the weather by the clouds. I was stepping out onto the field and feeling the wind on my skin. Action doesn't begin with heroism, it begins with architecture. Build your day so that the first step is unavoidable. I scheduled a morning task that couldn't be skipped. A short call, a draft of a page, 1 meeting, 1 visit. It's like starting a roller that flattens doubts. And you know what I noticed? Once the first step is done, The second becomes easier, and the third feels natural. Motion generates faith faster than faith generates motion. That's why people you call disciplined rarely wait for inspiration. They understand the mechanics of momentum. There's always a temptation to overcomplicate things, to create the perfect plan, wait for the perfect moment, gather the perfect team. But life doesn't pay for perfection. It pays for the value you deliver today. The sooner your value touches reality, the sooner reality touches your wallet, your reputation, and your influence. I've seen people prepare an idea for years, waiting for a grand launch, only to be outpaced by someone who entered the market with an imperfect version, but a brilliant readiness to listen and improve. Action is the language of feedback. Those who speak it daily learn 10 times faster. There's also a deeper layer of practice. Work not only on tasks, but on yourself. A mentor once told me, don't increase your hours, raise the value of your hour. That principle flipped my economy. I stopped chasing one more project and started increasing my own worth. Clarity of thought, ability to listen, accuracy of promises, precision of execution, power of speech. When you elevate the quality of the instrument, every note sounds richer. Action without growth is running in circles. Action with growth builds an upward spiral. Now for the question that often stings the chest, what if it doesn't work? My answer is both sharp and kind. Not working is part of how things work. Every failure is a feedback letter from reality, with the key lines underlined. Here's the inaccuracy. Here's where calibration is missing. Here's the detail you overlooked. I learned to celebrate not only victories, but corrections. After a tough meeting, I'd sit down and write 3 things. What hit the mark, where I bent, what I'll change tomorrow. It's not masochism, it's engineering. When you treat mistakes like an engineer, they stop being insults and become blueprints. Another truth worth accepting, great work is done in simple rhythms. The tempo that served me for decades sounds like this: short intervals of deep work, clear transitions, brief rest, then back to depth. No magic, just respect for energy. And yes, action must be protected. Set boundaries. Turn off notifications that shatter your focus like cheap fireworks. Establish a rule. When I work, I work. When I'm with family, I'm with family. When I rest, I recover, not scroll. Action loves clean edges. Let me share a micro story. A young entrepreneur once came to me tired and disappointed. I'm doing everything I can, but nothing's working. We broke down his everything. Turned out doing meant mostly planning, reviewing, discussing, doubting, polishing his logo. Actual client interaction, 2 hours a week. We changed just one thing. For the first 90 minutes of every day, deliver real value to a real client. A month later, he came back a different person. It feels like my business got kinder, he said. In truth, it wasn't the business, it was the calendar. It finally contained action, which can't be faked. Action teaches humility. It quickly shows where you overestimate and where you underestimate yourself. That's why a simple tracking system is so vital. Each evening I'd answer 3 questions. What did I do? What did I learn? What will I improve tomorrow? 10 nights of this honest reflection, and your week grows a spine. Don't wait for a grand Monday start. Start tonight. Water doesn't ask what day it is. It flows where you dig the channel. Do you know why action works so beautifully with faith? Because it supplies it with oxygen. When you act, you give your brain real proof that you're a person who starts and follows through. That proof, not slogans, builds lasting confidence. I'm not against slogans. I'm for invoices sent, proposals delivered, reps done at the gym, quiet no's to temptation. That's the stuff character is made of, the kind that moves mountains. And one final turn before the practice. Action shouldn't only face outward, it should also anticipate inward. We often act only once the fire starts. Try something else. Act before it's too late. Call before you need to ask. Learn before you fail. Prepare before you perform. This kind of action is invisible on the outside, but inside it builds the muscle of calm. And calm is a currency valued by both people and opportunities. I know you're waiting for the applied key, a simple way to start this machine from nothing today. And it's coming. In the next section, I'll give you an interactive practice where we fuse imagination, faith, and action into one daily ritual, something unmistakable and hard to break. We'll design your first hour of tomorrow, your evening protocol, and 5 questions to calibrate your course. But for now, let me say the main thing. Don't wait for permission. Move. All greatness loves the sound of footsteps. And it's your footsteps that turn air into bricks. Now we've reached the point where words must turn into action, and not just any action, but conscious practice, a daily experiment in which you recreate yourself. Because the true power of imagination, faith, and action reveals itself only when they become a habit, when you don't just know this, but live it. So today we'll do something special, an interactive exercise to help you anchor the 3 steps we've talked about. And it won't take much of your time, only your attention, but in return, it will give you confidence, clarity, and your first results. First, take a deep breath, a real intentional one, and let yourself pause for a moment. You're not a listener, you're a participant. This is your stage, and the main act begins now. Imagine you're standing in front of a door labeled My Nothing. You reach for the handle. Behind this door is not emptiness, but a space of possibility. And together right now, we'll take the first steps to bring that space to life. Let's start with a short self-assessment exercise. 5 questions. Rate each one from 1 to 10, where 1 means I rarely act in this direction, and 10 means this is already part of my life. Don't pause. Answer silently. Let your heart respond faster than your mind. Question 1. How strongly do I allow myself to imagine a future that feels bigger than my present? If you see yourself only within today's circumstances, it's like a gardener watering only what's already sprouted. Imagination is your fountain. If you're at a 3, don't scold yourself. Just start adding light to your visions. Question 2, how much do I believe that what's possible is possible for me? Because until that belief moves from theory to conviction, you're walking in circles. If you're at a 7 or 8, that's not arrogance, it's proof of experience. But if you're at a 2, that's okay. You simply don't have the proof yet. And you know what? Tomorrow we'll create it. Question 3, how often do I act without delay, even when I'm afraid? Because action isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move alongside it. If you're at a 5, that's already strength. You're halfway to freedom because action grows not from courage but from practice. Question 4, how much responsibility do I take for my days without excuses, without blame, without if only? Think about how much energy you lose asking why not me instead of what can I do. If you're at a 6, you're already awake. If you're at a 9, you're already building. If you're at a 3, great. Now you know where to start. Question 5. How ready am I to create from nothing today, not when I have more resources, not when it's the perfect time, but right now, because action doesn't wait for permission. It's born the moment you say, enough thinking, I begin. If you've just said that to yourself, congratulations, you're already at an 8. The rest will come with practice. Now, while these answers are still warm in your awareness, do this. Think of one idea that's been quietly calling to you. Maybe something small, maybe something old, maybe even something that sounds ridiculous at first. See it, name it silently. Now write 3 words. See, believe, do. That's your daily triangle of action. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, do these 3 things. See that idea again, but in detail, alive and real. Say to yourself, this is possible for me. Not as an affirmation, but as a reminder. You've already seen proof. Do 1 real thing toward it. Not 10, just 1. Send an email, make a call, draft a plan, remove a distraction. Any movement counts. And if before bed you remember it, close your eyes and thank yourself for that micro step. Because every great thing is built from micro steps. I know my life began with one small, unseen step that started everything. Now ask yourself one more question, not to rate, but to feel. What would happen if you gave yourself 30 days with no compromises in imagination, faith, and action? Just imagine for a moment that in a month your nothing transforms into tangible results you can see, feel, and hold. How would that change your life? Yes, don't stop now. You have momentum, use it. And if this video has touched you, leave a comment. Write down one thing you're starting to create today, not for algorithms, but for yourself, to lock in your intent. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, because we'll continue this journey, not just motivational, but real, from emptiness to meaning, from doubt to clarity, from nothing to something. Now, pause, inhale, feel that quiet but irreversible movement awakening deep within you. This is the beginning, and remember, you're not waiting for a miracle, you're creating it.
You know what I've realized after all these years? There are no truly empty people in this world. There are only those who haven't yet discovered their creative power. Because nothing isn't absence. It's pure potential. It's energy waiting for your decision. And every day when you wake up, life quietly hands you a brush and says, paint. Everything else is just an excuse. I started from zero. No money, no connections, no fame. But one day I told myself, if someone in this world can create something out of nothing, why not me? That day became a new beginning. Not because everything changed instantly, but because I did. And here's the core truth I want you to take away from this video. Life doesn't reward those who wait. It blossoms for those who create. We live in a world where everyone seeks guarantees. But in reality, there's only one guarantee. If you don't start, nothing will change. If you don't believe, nothing will move. If you don't act, nothing will appear. So when this video ends, don't go searching for inspiration. Search for action, because action is the purest form of faith. And remember, even when it feels like darkness surrounds you, there's always a spark visible in the dark. You can't see it in daylight when everything's bright, but at night it shines the brightest. Maybe today your spark is still small, but give it air and it will become a flame. Give it direction and it will light your path. Give it time and it will ignite others. So here's my challenge to you, my friend. Create one something out of your nothing today. Small, invisible maybe, but yours. Start with the first action, the first word, the first try. Because life doesn't measure our steps by their volume. It measures them by their honesty. And if you take that one step, sincere, conscious, with faith, you're no longer where you were yesterday. You're already in motion. And when a person moves, even the universe begins to adjust to their rhythm. I've always said, don't try to change the world. Change yourself, and the world will respond. Because success isn't a reward, it's a mirror. It simply reflects who you've become. So walk out the door today, look back at your nothing, and smile. Because now you know its true name. It's not emptiness, it's your canvas. And the world is waiting for you to start painting.